That initial exposure, reading this comic book with my father at 12, where he reminded me many times that I would always have to get up for a bathroom break and wasn't very concentrated, it somehow sunk in. And my parents, I remember, took me actually to France for a month when I was 12. And, I'm not saying I learned much French, but the whole thing really shaped, I knew there was a whole world out there. And, growing up in South Carolina in the 70s and 80s, it was very insular. There wasn't this global business school here with all of these, people from around the world. And I thought, wow, I love that. I want to see more of that. And that really did impact me. I learned French, so I wanted to continue with that. Went to France. It could have been another language. It could have been another culture. But I think it was just that outside influence. Just thought, I want to go there one day. I want to be part of those worlds. I didn't go to journalism school, so I wasn't planning for a career in journalism, and it's kind of what happened. I got lucky, but it's really the perfect career for me. And so speaking another language and being interested in foreign cultures, it's absolutely the base of being a foreign correspondent. I mean, you can't do it without that. So it's kind of, sometimes I have to pinch myself that, I was always trying to make my French better and go to French movies and just all this stuff, but now I actually get paid for all that, culture and history and society about learning about France that I did. So it's key. To be a journalist, you have to be interested, and if you're going to be a foreign correspondent, you have to pick a country and speak the language. So and I also discovered that speaking French is a key in many other countries. I covered the Arab Spring Revolution, the first one in Tunisia, and I went there having never gone, and I was really kind of, nervous about it. And I could talk to everybody because they all spoke French. So they closed the airspace, and at that time I was freelance, and I ended up covering the Arab Spring first revolution. And that was thanks to speaking French. So it really does open doors, languages. Huge, because I went to school with all of these people from around the world, and I had studied before that history mostly, and French, and, more liberal arts subjects. And just, the whole world of economics just blew my mind. I didn't really know it. And all of the interworkings and the interlacing, global commerce and how it, economies and how it fits together and how it works. So it was absolutely crucial to getting an understanding of really how the world works. It's not just about different cultures, but it's also all the businesses that work together, just the entire functioning of the world. And I can't tell you how many, I covered the Eurozone meltdown, the crisis in Greece. So I have covered so many financial, economic stories, and having this degree and knowing what that means, all of these terms, that's been absolutely crucial. I do a lot of economic coverage, so it's been very key. For as long as I can remember, growing up in South Carolina, I heard about MIBS, Masters in International Business, and this great internship abroad. And I just thought, I want to do that. And it was in my mind. I was like, that's the school I want to do. And it's funny because I didn't really want to live in South Carolina, maybe the rest of my life, but I knew I wanted to go to MIBS. And I knew that this school in South Carolina would be the key to me, maybe living abroad or at least traveling abroad. So it was always in my mind. I would say that, when I came to Moore, I was kind of new to the business world. I loved it. I was, let's say, not, I kind of knew I wasn't going to be the person who would go and start their own business one day. People do many different things with it. But it really opened my eyes to how the world works and all the gears that turn and all the links and connections there are. And I think that you have to follow what you love, and you can make a mix of things. Maybe you're not going to be a financier if you go to, business school. But, I feel like my business background, along with history and French, has just made me so prepared for what I do now, even more than having a journalist degree, I would say. And so I would say, just follow what you love, because that's what you're going to be able to do the best anyway. Had I probably gone into business undergraduate, it wouldn't have been the same, because I had a strong interest for history and French. But to have the business degree on top of that was really like the icing on the cake. Probably the Tunisian Revolution, because, I went into a country that, it was a authoritarian government, and I went in on the last day of the dictator. He fled the next day, and I had no way of knowing that, but I'll never forget how that unfolded and the people coming out in the streets, and then there was a string of revolutions afterwards. They unfortunately have not turned out very well, but it was amazing, and I had no idea that I was going into a world-changing event. So there would be that, and then another thing that was very impactful, I was in Ukraine when the invasion began in February 2022, and that was very shocking because I really didn't believe it would happen because, you know, Kyiv was like a huge, big, functioning city. People are modern. I was like, you can't just invade. This is, you know, and I was in the east near the Russian border when the invasion started at about 5 in the morning, and I'll just never forget that. And I knew Ukraine pretty well because I'd traveled there in 2014. There was a low-grade war going on in the eastern part of the country. I just never believed there would be a full-scale invasion, and to cross the country after that, because we had a safe house, NPR had a plan in place because we didn't know. And I remember thinking, oh, why are they wasting their time on this plan? Because there's not going to be an invasion, you know. And we fled across the country that day, and I'll just never forget it, like Ukrainians waking up to their country under attack. It felt like World War II or something, like we're in Poland and the Nazis are coming. It was just insane, and you're thinking, you know, what's the Ukrainian army doing? And we saw it, and the highways just started filling up, and the gas stations, and we'd go through little towns, and people were just shocked and incensed, and they were out in the town square saying, because nobody really believed it would happen there either, because the Russians were their friends. It was two modern countries. Of course there wasn't going to be an invasion, and people were just signing up for the military. They were just stunned, and I'll just never forget that very long day. I worked for the United Nations mission in Kosovo, peacekeeping office in their press office. And basically, that was a place where the Serbian dictator tried to drive out the ethnic Albanians and do ethnic cleansing. NATO bombed the Serbian dictator Slobodan Milosevic, and it was a war-torn country. The Albanians came back, then the Serbs fled for their lives, and so the UN came in and sort of ran it until a further status could be decided. It was part of Serbia, but it was an Albanian part of Serbia where people were ethnic Albanian. So what the UN did was just try to rebuild and to build those bridges to get people to get along again and to be able to live together. So that was the main gist of it. But it was absolutely fascinating, and, you know, later I would go to Eastern Ukraine, and it reminded me, you build on your knowledge, you know. Working there in that sort of post-war environment helped me a lot, really, in Ukraine. There's a lot of similarities. So it was just an amazing place. I had colleagues from around the world being in the UN, but also just being in that place at that time. It's like a real post-war place where people had fled over the mountains, where, you know, they had family members massacred, there were mass graves, this kind of thing, and you're working there, and it really, you know, it's extremely exciting because it's not like the job you have at home where you just go to work every day and then come home at night. It was like you're living it. You're living history. So it was amazing. I got fired from a job. Traumatic. I was 31. But guess what? That made me do. I pivoted, and that's how I ended up getting into journalism. And I found something that was perfect for me that I might not have found if I hadn't have been fired. And so failure can actually help you make a better life and choose the path that's better for you. And I heard that, God, who's the founder of Apple? Sorry, I'm blanking. Steve Jobs, he said that. He said failure is like one of the best things that can happen to you because it makes you reassess and rethink. Don't think that you have to be on one track and you have to succeed totally at that. And I mean, thank God I didn't have the same job from 22 to now. I would be bored out of my mind. I mean, I would just say to young people, I would say this. You're graduating from college, if you're 22 or graduate school at 25, you're thinking, oh my God, I have to have the job of my life. No, you don't. You need to build the layers, the foundation, because I always tell young people, the job you're really gonna want is at 32, not 22. So don't worry about getting the job that makes the most money and this and that. Go do something that feels worthy and interesting for you, because that's where, when a path opens up, there are branches to it, and many things will come from the path you choose, but do something that feels good. And if you can't have the perfect job, we've all been underemployed, then do something in your part-time, a volunteer thing, but get involved in something that matters to you, because I believe that that's really what will help you grow as a person, and that's what you'll be good at, and that's where you'll find happiness, and that's where you can find the most success, is when you're happy and you believe in what you're doing.